Hey everyone, it's Dave from Dave's Ohio Barbecue. Today we are going to be smoking turkey on the pellet grill. Stick around. So I have a couple other videos that I've cooked turkey on. I've cooked them on my Weber Smoky Mountain. I've cooked them on, I think, my offset. I've never done a turkey cook on my pellet grill. I figured since Thanksgiving's coming up, I'd do one. Although this recipe is great any time of year. I'm going to do a couple things to kind of speed up the process. First of all, I'm cooking about a 10-pound turkey here, so it's going to cook a little quicker than if you went and got a 20-25 pound bird. Those big birds are great, but to be honest with you, you probably will get better results and it'll be easier and quicker if you cook like a couple of 10-pound birds instead of cooking one 20-pound bird. They're just much easier to handle, they take up less space, especially if you do what we're gonna do, which is spatchcocking. If you don't know what spatchcocking is, it's basically the process of taking the bird and kind of like flattening it out so that all the meat cooks on one level. I'm also going to clean it up a little bit. There's some flaps. I don't need the tail of the bird here, and I don't need any big pieces of skin or fat that are flapping off there. That's fine. I can trim all that up, make it a little neater presentation. But the first thing you need for spatchcocking is you need a good pair of kitchen shears. Okay, that really comes in handy. And what you're going to do is you are basically going to remove the backbone right here, okay, so that you can basically spread the bird out, butterfly it almost, and flatten it so that it all kind of lays flat. So I got these nice shears here, and you can hear it crunching through there, so it's a lovely noise. Okay. Ooh. All right, and then you can flip her around, start on the other end, work your way back down that way. Let's see here. There we go. There is a thigh bone that you can run into right here that sometimes makes it a little bit difficult to get through. So I'm going to try it from the other side. See if I can approach it that way. There we go. There we go. Go around it there. Now don't throw this out. You can save this and you can use it for making stock if you're making a soup or something. Alright, so any little bits and pieces that are in there, you got some remaining giblets and things that it didn't get cleaned out earlier. Kind of wipe those out. I also like to kind of snip this side where the breastbone is a little bit. It just makes it lay a little bit flatter, I feel. Then just a matter of flipping the bird over, okay, and just hear that crunch, lay it flat. All right, so you see now I've got the bird here and it's all sort of like one flat uniform layer. A couple other things you can do to clean it up. No one's going to eat these little tips of the wings, so I always like to just kind of cut those off as well. Again, save them for stock if you want. You can also, cut this little flap of skin if you want them to be a little bit more maneuverable. All right, and there you go. So kind of take a little inspection, see if there's any place. If you want to cut out the wishbone, you can. Wishbone is, and this is going to be hard to do at the angle I'm at, but it's right here. You can get a knife underneath it and just kind of run your knife down like that. Okay. Again, trim off any weird funky bits. You want it to look nice. I know it's just, usually you're just making turkey for the family, but even for the family, try to look nice. Got all that out. And again, just kind of go around and just sort of inspect. Is there any place where you can clean up the bird? Okay, get a nice sharp knife. Boning knives work well. I've got this little paring knife I'm using today because I know for a fact it's nice and sharp. Kind of like this stuff, like ugh. You can trim all this off. You don't need any of that. Okay, And there's a lot more you can do to this bird. There's other little bones in the thighs you can remove. There's, you know, other little flaps of skin. But I'm just going to kind of do this rough presentation right here. So once I have it all butterflied like this, or once I have it all spatchcocked, I should say, what I want to do is I want to get some brine. In my case, I'm going to be using a dry brine. There are a lot of guys who use wet brine where you actually soak it in a mixture of water and sugar, and those work great. I've used them before, but I'm going to be using dry brine. And what I'm going to do to make it easier, to make it kind of, you know, stick onto the skin and get through, or stick onto the meat and get through the skin, is I'm going to be applying it directly to the meat of the bird. So I just kind of go around and loosen up some of this skin here so that I can get underneath it. The skin's pretty tough. You don't really have to worry too much about ripping it unless you're going, you know, unless you're going crazy on it. But I kind of make sure there's all sorts of areas I can get in. You can see I can get in up under this breast right here. You know, it's pretty good. Make sure I can get up under the thigh meat here and up from the front of the breast as well. And just kind of use your finger to separate the skin from the meat, okay? Because this skin, it's almost like the gloves I'm wearing, you know? You could put your brine, you could put your salt mixture on the bird, on the skin, but the skin's really gonna just kind of stop it from soaking through, and that's not what you want. You want it to get into the meat. You want the salt to absorb into the meat, because that will truly give you a juicier bird. For my brine today, it's going to be, I don't need that much because it's not a very big turkey. Like I said before, it's only a 10-pound bird. I'm going to use about a quarter cup of kosher salt, a couple tablespoons of sugar. In my case, I'm using brown sugar, just because I like the flavor. It has a little bit more of a caramely flavor to it. So again, a couple tablespoons of that. As you can tell, I'm not being super precise with these measurements. Then a little bit of thyme, just to give it that traditional, you know, it's probably about a teaspoon. And then also, if you want to give it a little bit of color, I sometimes like to add some paprika to the mix. Not a lot, again, maybe a half teaspoon or so, just to kind of, you know, give it a little bit of that color. So then you go in, make sure you've got it all mixed up here, okay? And this is what I'm going to use as my brine for the turkey. Now when you are dry brining this turkey, you really want to go and do it about, you know, a day ahead of time. If you have a really big bird, if you're like trying to smoke like a 20-pound bird, you might want to do it 2 or 3 days ahead of time. The reason is it takes a while for the salt to get down into the meat, and you know, you really want it to be nice and juicy, so you want to make sure you have plenty of time for it to get in there. With this bird, since it's only, you know, 10 pounds, I'm just kind of doing this the night before, and then it should be fine by the next morning. Again, just kind of sprinkle it on there, okay? Get it on good. Get all the different areas. I got to get underneath my thigh meat here. Okay, make sure you get a nice even coat on there. It's really the salt that does most of the trick here. You know, rub it around, pull the skin back down. You can also, you can apply some of this to the skin as well, just to flavor it. I'm going to use a rub, a barbecue rub, on my skin, so I'm not too worried about getting it. But also, you can see here, you know, get the underside of the leg and the thigh, get that good. Get those breasts, because those are the biggest pieces of the meat right there. They're thick, and it's going to take a while for that salt to work its way down into the breast meat, okay? So definitely, you know, at least for a small bird like this, at least the night before. But like I said, any bigger, and you're going to want to go even further with that. All right, get that. Let me get my other legs over here. So good. I'm so excited for this. All right, this is kind of like my test run for Thanksgiving. Got that. The wings, I'm not really going to try to do anything there. Got to be careful with this because the you can see the legs and thighs are not really attached anymore. As I'm going through here, there's a couple other areas I probably should clean up that are not. I did not do a stellar job. Nice. All right. Okay. Any other areas? Let's get some up in here. Just make sure I'm getting it all good. Oh, good stuff. So I'm going to put this back into a pan, and I'm going to leave it uncovered in the fridge for 24 hours. Uncovered is the way to go with this because the refrigerator is a naturally cold environment, and you can really dry out the skin, which is what you want to do when you're making this bird, because drying out the skin will make it get crispier on the smoker, especially if you're smoking it at a lower temperature like we're going to be doing. The rub for this turkey is pretty straightforward. It is an 1/8 of a cup of kosher salt, and then about 1/4 of a cup of coarse ground black pepper. If you want less, heat to it, you can do equal parts. And then on top of that, I put about a tablespoon onion powder, a tablespoon of garlic powder, about maybe a 1/2 tablespoon of paprika, and then a little bit of thyme just to give it a little bit more of a Thanksgiving flavor. And that's it. You don't want too much salt in it, so beware, because you've already salted the meat, ahead of time, the night before, hopefully. And so it already has a salty quality to it. So if you want to cut that, salt down to a couple tablespoons, be my guest. I kind of like a little bit of a salty element to it, but it is very easy to overdo it, so be careful. You can see when I start shaking it on here, there's a couple big pieces of pepper that escaped the grinder. That's all right. I will fish those out of there afterwards. All right, I'm just making sure to get all the skin, get the meat. Again, I'm going to be letting it sit on there for at least an hour to tack up, is what we like to call that. You'll see it'll draw out some of the moisture of the skin, although this skin is pretty dry because I have had it sitting in a refrigerator for 18 hours again, so it's pretty dry. But again, get a nice coat on there. Oh yeah, it's gonna be nice. And again, you can put any flavors you want on this turkey, all right? If you want it to be more traditional Thanksgiving, I actually have a video that I did last year for more of a traditional flavor using sage and rosemary and thyme and all those flavors. That I will put a link to up here in the description box, or I'll put a link down in the description, but I'll also put a link in right above the turkey right here. But whatever you want to do, it's up to you. Make sure you get all the skin here, okay? I'm gonna be adding some butter to this later once I crank the heat up on my smoker to kind of get the skin to crisp, because that really is the secret, is to get crispy skin on a smoked turkey. It's hard to do, so if you can do that, you will be the G. There you go. I'm gonna let this sit for about an hour. While that's sitting, I'm gonna go outside and I am going to fire up the smoker. So today we're gonna be cooking this at 275, but with my smoker, what I like to do, I like to turn it on. You can see it's already set to 360. I like to get it actually up to that temperature. That way it burns off anything that's on the grate. It also gets the smoker nice and heated up. It's also recommended by the manufacturer. And then once it gets up to 360, I'm going to turn it down to the 275, and that is when I'm going to put my turkey on there. As you can see, obviously we got a little ways to go because it's about 40 degrees out here today. The smoker says it's around 30, so I'm going to let that warm up, and then we shall see what we got. So we're going to be smoking them today with applewood pellets, just because it gives that little touch of sweetness to the turkey, and I think that complements the flavor of the meat very nicely. So now that the smoker has essentially got down to temperature, about 275 is what I'm going to be cooking this at, I am going to take the turkey. The heat source on this smoker is down on this side, so I'm actually going to put the dark meat on this end, put the breast meat over here a little bit. Let me get it situated on there for you. Kind of like that. One of the cool things about my smoker is it's got a built-in temperature probe for the meat. It's got a little slot right here that it goes in through. I'm going to put this in the breast meat, and I'm going to set it for a temperature of about 130. And the reason I'm setting it so low is because I actually want the smoker to kind of kick off at 130, and it'll go down into warming mode. And then once it gets to 130 for the internal temperature, I'm going to crank the temperature up on the smoker to about maybe 375, and I'm going to finish it at a higher temperature. That'll help the skin crisp up, and that'll give it, you know, a little bit more of that bite through skin that we're looking for. So now that the temperature of the turkey has reached 130 degrees, I am going to up the finish temperature to about 160. I'm going to take it to 165, but I want it to, you know, kind of start thinking about taking it off at 160 so some of the carryover heat can finish cooking it. And I'm going to up the smoker. You can see the smoker kick down into 180 degrees, which is warming mode. I'm going to up the smoker to 375 to kind of get the skin to crisp up. In addition to that, what I'm going to do, and you can see the skin looks a little dry, I'm going to take some melted butter and start basting that. I want to get a little bit more gloss on this skin, and I also want to see if I can start getting it to darken up a little bit. Crisp up too, the butter will help. Now you're going to see a little bit of smoke come up because that's just the butter dripping down onto the hot grease pan underneath there. It's really not a big deal. That'll dissipate here in a minute. Oh yeah. So I can tell right now the skin is actually getting kind of crispy. That has a lot to do with the fact that we let it dry out in the fridge for, you know, 18 hours before we got it over here on the smoker. All right, so the meat of the turkey has reached about 160 degrees, maybe a little bit more, about 162. I'm going to take the thermometer out here, and I would call it done. Now, I know you want to take it to about 165, but since it's a turkey, which is a pretty large, you know, hunk of meat, you might want to pull it off a little bit early, just so you can get, you know, the carryover to finish the bird off. Ooh, and this skin is crispy. I'm going to pull it down here into my pan. Ooh, it is falling apart good. I can't wait to try this. Before you go cutting into this, make sure that you let it sit for, I'd say at least 20-25 minutes. Let all the juices distribute it, let it settle down, because if you cut it open right now, it's just going to drip all over the place. You can see the skin is nice and cut through. It is crunchy, crunchy. All in total, this bird took about 2.5 hours to smoke. Now, you might be telling yourself, wow, that seems like a awfully quick amount of time to smoke a turkey, but you got to remember a couple things. One, this turkey was spatchcocked, so it was laying flat, so that'll kind of speed up the process. Ooh, look at the nice smoke ring on there, see that? That'll speed up the process. Two, this was a small bird. When I started out, it was about 10 pounds. By the time I trimmed out the back, the wings, and any other little pieces that were all over the place, it probably was closer to 9, maybe even under 9. So it wasn't a very big turkey. So if you're going to be doing a bigger turkey, it will take longer. And thirdly, I did this at a lower temperature, but I did not do the entire turkey low and slow. If you remember, once it got to 130 degrees, I cranked up the temperature of this thing. Oh man, this smells good. And cranked up the temperature on my smoker, and then I did the rest at a higher than a usual temperature. All right, this piece is going right in my mouth. Oh, that's good. So by cranking it up to 375, I cranked it up to, that also cut down the time a little bit. If you're not really worried about, you know, what the skin's like on this thing, you could take it you know, to finish temperature at the low and slow, you know, cooking temperature of 275, it'll take a lot longer. So let's take a look at a piece of breast meat here. Oh my gosh, it's like dripping in there. That's really good. I'm gonna try this piece right here. That's pretty good. That's really good. Skin is crisp thanks to that butter, and the little heat at the end really kind of crisped it up at the end. Really nice flavor. You can taste the salt in it. Has a nice kind of holiday flavor to it. Pepper's really nice. It gives it that little bit of kick. Ooh, that's tasty. As always, thanks for watching. Make sure you follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Dave's Ohio Barbecue. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Press that little bell down below there so you get notifications when I have new videos that come out. I've got a lot of stuff in the works right now. If you have any comments or questions, leave them below. I may even use them in an upcoming video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.